Hey everybody, welcome to Behind the Build with Scott and Deven. I'm Scott.
And I'm Deven.
Today's episode, this is our first real episode of the podcast.
That's right.
And today we're going to talk to you guys about buying land. This is really for those of you that don't already own land, who are looking for land. We get a lot of questions about that. We've got a lot of people that reach out to us. They want to know if we can help find land, if we own land that we can sell you. The answer to that is no. But we can help educate you on what to look for when you're looking for land. You know, we do have some ways to help you find land. We have some realtor connections out there, some different things. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you are looking for land and you need help. We'll do everything we can to help facilitate that.
Absolutely. I want to point out that we're both very casual today.
Yeah. I've got my hoodie on.
You know, a little flannel, feeling like we're in the weeds again. But
I used to wear flannels. I remember like chopping wood as a kid, and I always wore flannel. So when I saw you in that flannel, that's the first thing I thought of.
Though this is the idea of this, and the intention is here to try to educate you guys on what it means, what land means. You know, you say the word land, you go on Zillow or you go on whatever platform you're looking to try to find a piece of property, and that's just one aspect. You know, a lot of us, I do it all the time. I look for land all the time just because it's a passion of mine. And you look at price and acreage and where it is, but we're not looking at all the intrinsic things that go into what is land.
Right.
And there's a lot of factors when you're going into buy a piece of property. What are you looking for? Pitfalls you should avoid. What are the things you want to know before you purchase that land? Or if you already own land, what should you know to make sure that it's buildable?
Right, yeah. I mean, because you can have land or you can be looking at land. A lot of times it's like, oh, this is too good to be true. This lot's $20,000, it's 2 acres.
Right.
Well, there's probably a reason for that. And, we're gonna get into some of that stuff because, if the land seems too good to be true as far as the price, you're gonna end up paying for that. And, it might be, you might have to put a basement on the lot. You might need a retaining wall.
Could be a setback issue.
Could
be a boundary issue that no one tells you about. There's an easement that a public utility might have that runs right through the center of that lot, and it's really one lot, but you have a 30-foot easement right down the middle that makes it and renders it unbuildable.
Right.
So, there's a lot of things that make land, right? It's not just the dirt under your feet.
There's environmental issues that could come up.
Absolutely.
You could have an RPA, an RMA. There might be wetlands on the lot. These are things that you can't see.
Right.
And it takes a surveyor who knows what they're doing to really uncover those things. And it's important when you're buying land to know these things so that you know what to ask, you know what to put in the contract. You don't want to go buy land and close on the land in 10 days. You want to make sure you have a contingency in there for a study period.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many things that factor in, along any of the waterfronts. You have, especially in the Chesapeake Bay watershed area, you've got drainage requirements or what you can't run off into those areas. And then you're stuck with, well, how am I supposed to drain my lot? They're not going to let me put anything off the house or off my land into the watershed. How do we avoid that? And that gets tricky. Sometimes there's not even an answer to that. They're not going to provide that to you. So, you have to have grading plans, specific grading plans where you may have to, what we would call develop the lot so that the water goes instead of to the rear, if that's where the water is, typically that would be the case, is to the front. And it can cost thousands of dollars to get you there. Yeah. And here you've bought this piece of property that you think is great and it's got water views, but how do you get the water off? So we're gonna kind of dive deep into that. Scott, what are some of the questions that we get for what should people be looking for, or when they have land, what are some of the biggest obstacles just right off the bat?
I think it may seem overwhelming to you guys listening to us, and it's really not. I think it's important to note here that it's not that overwhelming. It's really not, but there are certain things, and we'll try to keep it as simple as we can, but still we want to let everybody know what the most important things are to look for, and a lot of this stuff will come up, together when you get a survey done. So, but I think just thinking about it, the most important things are going to be what are the setbacks on the lot, right? So how far off of each side of the lot can you build? And it creates a buildable envelope on the property. So you're going to have a front setback, a rear setback, and side setbacks.
Correct.
Right.
I think the other important thing, just to jump in there, is what that property is zoned.
Yes, that's the number one thing.
That's probably the first place you probably want to look at.
You have to make sure it's zoned for residential construction, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If it's farmland and you've got to rezone it, depending on the jurisdiction, that can take some time. So you want to make sure how it's zoned, and you can go to your local municipality and find out if you have land or you're researching to purchase. You want to make sure that that's a residential, an R1 is what you want.
And it can be, you can build on some agricultural property. It depends.
That's right.
It depends on the locality. It depends on the zoning, but your local zoning office can answer all those questions for you. We can help too. If we have great people here. Deborah in our office is an expert on this stuff, and she can really help you guys navigate through some of that stuff.
She's an excellent resource.
Yeah, even some commercial areas. There's commercial areas in certain towns and localities where you can build a residential home on those commercially zoned properties. But again, that's just something that you have to talk to the locality about, and it is something that we're more than willing to help with.
And then the setbacks is probably number 2. What's the envelope? What is the envelope that I say envelope? I don't know. This is the way we say it, but the envelope is going to be important because you want to know the size of a home. That's what makes that so important, right? We've seen some wild stuff. You got 10 acres, but the envelope's 10,000 square feet because it's surrounded by, wetlands or undisturbed limits of disturbance, LOD. They're not going to let you clear a certain distance, and so you want to make sure that your envelope is going to be sufficient for the needs that you have for your home.
Right.
And that's pretty easy to find as well. I mean, it's not that difficult. And again, all the things that we mention here, we have experts in this field and we can absolutely help you. So one of the things we don't want to dissuade you from when we have this conversation is you can still come and pick your home and write a contract, and as long as you have clear deed, we can work with you on what it's going to take to get that lot prepped. I mean, so that let's make sure you guys understand that. You don't have to do a lot of this legwork yourself, but we can definitely help everybody do that, whether it's you're ready to put a contract on a piece of property or otherwise. But outside of that, you've got the setbacks, drainage. The type of fall. When we say fall, does the lot tilt one way or the other? Is it on a mountain? Is it in a field? Is it on the ocean? Is it on a lake? All those things factor.
Yeah. The slope is very important. If the lot has a lot of slope on it, you're probably going to want to consider building a basement on the lot. And we do offer basements. That's a question we get all the time.
Right.
Do you guys offer basements on some of your homes? We offer them on pretty much all of our homes. I think
everything.
All of our homes you can put a basement on. So don't be dissuaded by a lot that might have a little slope. We get a lot of people that build in the mountains or on a lake where it slopes down to the lake. So it's not something that prevents you from building. It adds a little bit of cost. A lot of times those lots might be a little bit less expensive. So it all kind of washes out at the end of the day.
And just to touch on the basement issue, the other thing is remember too, if it doesn't, what we call a walkout. So if you're in your basement, you can exit the basement through a door. We can do in-ground basements too. They do them everywhere. You can do a full basement, what we call a full basement. So a basement space doesn't necessarily have to walk out. But back to the land, what are some of the other things that we see?
So you want to make sure that you have access to the property. Believe it or not, there are some lots that could be landlocked. There's no way to access the property with a driveway. And in those cases, you have to get an easement to come across somebody else's property to get into your property. That's one thing you want to look for is the access to the lot. Make sure you have clear access to the lot where you can put a driveway into the home.
Where do they find that information? Is that Department of Transportation in your local area?
The surveyor, when you're going to have to get a survey done when you're looking at a property. A lot of times it's already done. Sometimes it may not be done yet. But
before you close, you want to make sure that you have that.
Absolutely.
You got to make sure there's a couple things you're going to want to make sure you have, and we're kind of bouncing around a little bit. But for those of you at home writing some of this down, access is the envelope, access. You're going to want to make sure that you have a survey.
Right.
You're going to want to make sure you're not buying a piece of property that doesn't come with one, and you don't know what the boundary lines are, the property lines are. You're going to want to make sure that's spelled out by a surveying a stamped, so somebody that's not just doing it on a scratch pad.
Yeah.
You're going to want to buy a licensed engineer that verifies the envelope, the boundary, the lines, the lot lines, any
Access, easements
that exist. You're going to want to have that.
Yeah, easements are, you could have a drainage easement on the property or a power easement on the property. Those are basically areas of the property that are designated for utility companies to come in and run an underground power line, or it could be an overhead power line. It could be a gas easement where they're running a gas line.
Absolutely, some kind of emergency access easement.
Right.
The easements could kind of go on and on. They're if you can think it, they probably have one.
Yeah, and typically not a big deal. It just factors into the building envelope itself.
That's correct.
This is all stuff that'll show up on the survey.
That's right.
When you're initially looking at the land, I think as long as you're going through a realtor, this stuff is typically going to come up. You're going they are required to inform you of these things, but it doesn't always happen. So I think that's why it's important to know what you're talking about. Talk to your builder. Get help from your builder with the actual land contract.
Right.
And you want to put a feasibility study period on that contract.
Very important.
We recommend a minimum of 45-day feasibility study, if not 60 days. And what that means is, when you're submitting the contract, that's going to give you 45 to 60 days, depending on how much time you request, to get everything done that you need to get done to make sure that lot's buildable for the home that you want to build. Not just buildable, but buildable for what you want to build, right? So you want to make sure that the house size that you want is going to fit on that lot. You want to make sure that, this is one thing we haven't brought up yet, but you want to make sure that it perks for a septic system if it's not on public utilities. So you're going to get a soil test done that's going to test the perk rate of the soil. That's going to tell you what type of system you get. And hopefully it's a conventional system that's the least expensive. We do see a lot of alternative septic systems, and then there's engineered systems. Engineered are the most expensive, alternative are kind of in the middle, and a conventional is the least expensive. That is one of the most important things to always check before you close on a lot, is to make sure you can put a septic system in.
If one's needed. And we'll go into all the utilities in another podcast. So we'll deep dive the differences about all the things that Scott just mentioned, including wells and how to get power. We'll go into all of that stuff in another episode so that you're really informed on what that means. But you're exactly right. I mean, if you don't have that, you're kind of flying blind, and we've had some customers disappointed by the fact that they couldn't perk. And there's different things that you can do. Direct discharge is one, but that's really difficult to get past.
And expensive. It can be $50,000 for some of these engineered systems, and that's probably not a lot that you want to buy if there's other alternatives.
There's certain engineers that'll help you with that. The health department can help you with that. So some of that stuff's already been done, but you definitely want to check that. You got to make sure that you can actually put a waste system and a water supply system on your property. Another thing that we recommend is, if I were to buy a piece of property myself, next in line after all those boxes are checked is I would definitely want to do a subsurface, a geotechnical report to understand kind of, and I referenced this in our construction conversations on foundations. This is an important one. We need to, you really ought to know the type of building that you can build there from a foundation standpoint. You can have a good setback, you can have a good flat lot, you can have all those things, but you could have some tremendously bad soil, some farmland that's been tilled over and over and over again. You may not be able to get to what we call virgin soil, which is undisturbed soil, for 6, 7, 8, 10 feet. And you don't know that when you're going in. So you want to make sure that you hire a geotech to come in, do some boring logs, and we'll show you guys some examples of what those look like. But very, very important for you guys to reference that so that you know. I think that kind of couples with the perk test and the AOSC. So those are some things you need to look for.
Just to touch on that real quick before we move on, I mean, I think, the soil test that Devin's referring to is very important because, sometimes, I mean, we've run into lots before where people don't know it, but there might have been a landfill on the property.
Right.
Or there's
burn pit.
Yeah, burn pits or fill dirt, and it's right where they want to build the house, and you can't build on top of that. Or if you do, it's going to be so expensive to do.
Right.
And you're not going to find out if there's not a soil test done. You're not going to find out until we get ready to build the house.
That's right. And there's other things, expansive soils. They are a problem in almost every area. Some of the municipalities require the soil test, so you're not going to get away with not having to perform one. But you have expansive soils, and none of this stuff is to dissuade building.
No.
This is all stuff that's buildable. It's just something that when you're factoring in your own personal budget, you want to know that so that before you close on the lot, you kind of know exactly what you're walking into and going forward. I know you touched on access. There's another thing that we need to think about, and that is emergency service access. So if you are in like a really steep grade, you're going to want to get with like the municipal fire department is typically who would want to come out and make sure they can get a fire truck up there. And that can have an impact too. We've had some folks that got all the way down to building a road, and the emergency service says, how am I supposed to get here if I'm fighting a fire? So those are important things. I think that in addition to that, you want to find something that is beautiful, something that you feel like you can live for a very long time. If you have property, all the things that we just talked about is something that you should go ahead and do that investigation now, if you haven't already. A lot of times if you have land, right, you're gonna maybe not have a perk test, or maybe you wouldn't have a soil report done.
Right, if you already own the land.
Right, if you already own the land, you may not, it's been in your possession for generations or 2 generations, or you were gifted it. These are all questions that you should have answered prior to really kind of moving forward. Now, again, we have a ton of people that can help you. So, our sales staff will be able to point you guys in the right direction. That's one of the things that we offer as a service for sure. We're not expecting you guys to know this stuff out and out. This is just kind of an outline of some questions you should be asking. But definitely we have people that.
Oh yeah. We've got a lot of people that, and we see it all. I mean, you guys can probably tell by listening to us, and hopefully it's not too overwhelming, but it's a lot. There's a lot of things that can come up. They don't typically come up, but they can. So we just, we feel like it's important to educate you on this stuff. Deven, one other thing that's really important are the restrictions and covenants and HOA requirements on a property. So this is something that should be disclosed to you by the selling agent on the property, and they should provide you with a packet that includes whether or not there's a homeowners association tied to that particular piece of land. It'll tell you if there's HOA dues that are required, for maintenance within the HOA neighborhood. And then also, what's most important as far as building goes are what's called architectural requirements.
Right.
And we run across this a lot where people weren't aware that there were architectural requirements associated with their property, and they can be, and that can be things like it has to be a minimum square footage. Like maybe they want a minimum of 2,500 square feet if it's a ranch, and if it's a 2-story, it might be a different square footage.
They could tell you too that they don't want 2 stories, or they don't want ranches, want single level floor plans.
Yes.
They want a certain siding, they want a certain roofing, they want, they only allow certain colors. You have to have a garage. Some of them that we've run into, they demand that you have a garage. Some folks don't want a garage. And
right, yeah, we've seen them where, they may require a detached garage, just depending on where it is. A lot of them typically where we're gonna be building, they may want a brick foundation. They may not allow vinyl siding, and they may want hardy or brick,
cement board of some sort,
something like that. As far as the siding, they could have a requirement for the roof. Maybe they want a metal roof or a 50-year shingle or something that that is non-standard.
A lion's share of the time, you're going to see that in a subdivision.
Right.
So in an already established subdivision, you can pretty well guarantee they're going to have some requirement. Make sure that you are asking those questions before you purchase land. Or if you already have the land, get those questions answered. And again, come back to it. We have people that can help you with that.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's something too, when it's time to submit to the architectural review board, we take care of all that for you. So we'll submit your building plans, we'll submit all the materials list, we'll submit all the colors. And we do that every day, all the time. So it's something we're comfortable with, and we can get it through pretty quickly.
And I think some people, when you're looking for land, just kind of thinking out loud here, a lot of times you might find a piece of property with an existing home on it. And maybe you find the right deal. A lot of times we have it happen more often than you would think, where there's an existing home or you already own the home or, whatever it is. And we demolish the house and build something new.
Oh, yeah.
So don't let that be, dissuade you from whether or not you can build your house. Most jurisdictions will allow a demo or removal of what structure's there.
Yeah.
So that's not something that is a hurdle that you need to really worry about. That's something that
that's
can
a
be
good
done.
point. And sometimes it might even be a better deal. I mean, if it has if it may have a trailer on it that's already connected to a well and septic, so you've already got the
100%.
well and septic there.
The access is there, the power's there.
Yeah, there can be some good deals out there like that you may not necessarily look for. So keep that in mind when you're talking to the realtor.
Absolutely.
And let them know to include those types of properties in your search, because it could end up saving you money.
Oh, absolutely. If a lot of times when you have an existing septic, typically depending on the elevation, and we'll get into that in another pod, but it's elevation plays a role in where that existing septic is, and how we overcome that is there's a septic pump that we can pump up a hill or push down, or so again, don't let that be the thing that causes you concern or fear. All these things are overcomable. Not something that you got to spend too much time in, but having a well there is a huge advantage. Our allowances are like $15,000 for a well, and that can go up or down. It's definitely changes depending on how deep you drill. But if you already have that in there, it's an advantage for you. And power.
Yeah, power's already there.
The road that's a big one. That can be a big cost, trying to put a road in. Those types of things are things that you want to think about in your search. I think when we talk about elevation and how elevation can affect you, I think this is an important thing to talk about, because a lot of times folks buy a piece of property that, or have a piece of property that has extreme elevation, up or down. And we're gonna show you some slides. I'll have Tucker pull up a slide here, but what that does is it's inflating the cost of your foundation. So, you've got this piece of property, it's beautiful, you love it, it's on a lake, and now you've got 8 to 10 feet of fall, and now you're looking at, a basement, to Scott's point, and you're looking at anywhere from, depending on the footprint, $80,000 to $100,000 for that basement. The fall can really change your budget, and you need to know that when you're looking at a piece of property. And there's no perfect answer. So it could be flat as this table, and we might run into some issues where we have to have extra foundation because we can't drain it away, or we have to drain it a certain way because there's wetlands, or the watershed is behind you. So all these things do play a role. And have a factor in your decision-making process of what's going on. Again, we can help you with that, so don't let that be a reason not to come into one of our sales centers, but it's something that you really need to consider.
I think as far as the elevation of the lot goes, a lot of times, the lot's big enough to where you can potentially move the house somewhere where it's not gonna have as much fall within the envelope of the foundation. And I think we do a pretty good job of helping people determine that. A lot of times though, you may be set on a particular place on your plot of land where you want your house, and it may require additional foundation to put it there. But if that's where you want it, that's your call. But we can help as far as being able to consult you on the best placement of the home on the property.
Yeah, I mean, we take a look at a topographical map on every job. And we try to budget in mind, placement in mind. We will definitely give you guys suggestions on where we think the house would be the most economically placed.
Right.
Let's say that. And we do that all the time. We have some severity. Why don't we show them a couple things?
Yeah, let's pull it up. Let's pull up
why
some
don't you
stuff.
pull up a couple of, we're talking to Tucker here behind the scenes. Why don't you pull up, let's start with like a flatter, narrower lot, maybe the Lucas job. So what you can see here is you've got two structures, right, Scott? This is a narrow lot.
This is a 40-foot wide. This lot's 40 feet wide by about 140 feet deep. It's in Cape Charles, Virginia. Basically perfectly flat.
Right, and what are some of the challenge with perfectly flat? As you can see, there's not a lot of places you're gonna drain rainwater. So, our standard foundations 4 courses, this may require 5.
Right.
Because you wanna have some fall away from the structures in between. Another thing to kind of consider is, how you are able to build on that lot. You've got this narrow footprint. Excavation could be, you may have to haul some dirt off. You may have to stockpile some dirt. So there's things that, can add to some of the complications, but by and large, it's not the end of the world and certainly not a problem for us to build on.
Yeah, this is a good example here. This is the lot we were just looking at in Cape Charles. So this is the actual survey plat that we would submit for the building permit, and it shows the 2-story house on the property. It shows what the building setbacks are. So this particular one has 5 feet setbacks on the sides. It looks like it's got a 10-foot setback on the front. I'm not sure what's on the back there, but anyway, that kind of gives you your, we've got 25 on the back. So you can see where there's a dotted line that shows the buildable envelope on that property. And that's the only place the house can go. It's like this particular one, we can encroach on the setback on the side with steps. So we have steps coming off the side of the house that are 3.5 feet from the property line, which is fine with that particular locality, but that's all locality dependent as far as,
right,
is the deck going to encroach, is the deck or is the stoop or is the front porch allowed to encroach into that setback? Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. It all depends on the locality.
Right, absolutely. This is pretty straightforward. This is typically what you're gonna see. And when you're purchasing land, you may not have like a house in mind. Or obviously, what this shows is an overlay. This site plan has an overlay of a building that we've already platted. You won't see that building, but the envelope, what we referred to earlier, is going to give you kind of like a guideline of where you can put your structure. This is where you're going to put your structure. Why don't we take a look at a couple more slides here? We have a couple slides here. This is obviously you can see it's wooded. This has a little bit of fall. Fall is very deceptive. So sometimes you look and say, it's pretty flat. We do have surveyors that are going to give us our elevation change, which is very important within the building envelope. And obviously we could see some water and stuff there. So, we'll build that house so that we can get that drainage and that water to wick away from the structure as we go. But that's a totally buildable lot. Looks great, ready to go. Nice woods behind.
Yeah, Deven, I think on that too, like this is a good one to illustrate. When you're looking at the property, one thing to consider is how, is it wooded or is it already cleared? Is it a field?
Right.
And if it's wooded and it's going to need clearing, that's something you'll have to factor into the cost, the total cost as well. It's typically somewhere between, I would say, $10,000 and $15,000 per acre to clear. So that's something to consider. I mean, the majority of lots you're going to look at are going to be wooded. And clearing is something that that's going to come in to play there.
Yeah, and there's a lot of companies out there, a lot of resources out there. We can certainly help facilitate that. We've got a lot of contacts that we have, so that's not something that you should worry too much about. But it is something that you need to figure in on clearing. This is a really nice flat lot. You can see that this has just been freshly cleared and what we call grubbed. this is a good opportunity to see kind of like what you might find in some of the areas that we build into. This is obviously a bit more rural, lots of space, lots of area to build in. So, it lends itself really well to, do we have the site plan on that? And there you go. So you see, when you see the letters LOD, that's the limits of disturbance. That's the area around the lot that the town or the city has designated you can't clear. And sometimes that encroaches into building envelopes, unfortunately. So you got to pay careful attention to that LOD marking. This one looks like it's in good shape. It gives us the grading plan, so it tells us where we're going to flow water to. This one actually had an existing septic tank. So back to the point that we talked about earlier, this probably had a structure on it, obviously, at one point, then it was torn down, and they'll abandon that septic tank and put a new septic system in. Mm-hmm. Let's go to some of the extreme slopes. So you can see this is a basement with a tall crawl. This is a job that's built on 13 foot of fall. This was a time-consuming job to get designed right, to get all the pieces in play. I know that the customers worked really hard to get this one ready for them. This was a labor of love, and I think they would agree. But here we are now. We've got it right where they want it, and things are going well there. But you can see the extreme slope. I mean, that's something that you got to factor in when you're looking at a piece of property, right, Scott?
Yes, yeah. This is about as extreme as it gets without being on a cliff. And this is like we were talking earlier. They're beautiful homes when they're built, and we can do a lot of really cool things on these lots. But it does add a tremendous amount of cost.
Right.
Did this one end up with a retaining wall?
No, this one we were able to avoid it. So,
okay.
which is good. So we use dirt as is kind of the retention, but right. This is an extreme example of kind of what you're looking at when you're buying in a mountainous area, and we do that all the time.
Yeah.
So this isn't foreign to us. This is just one of those things when you come in. Don't get dissuaded by the fact that you have a lot of fall. We can build on it. It just takes some time to engineer it and get it right so that we get it perfect for you. Well, as perfect as we can get it, right? I don't like to use the word perfect, but these are challenges when you see them, but totally achievable.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We've built over 5,000 homes. We've seen it all. We've done a little bit of everything. We've kind of shown you guys both extremes here, perfectly flat and extremely sloped. And the majority of what we do is somewhere in between.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Vast majority. The extreme slope is going to be the smaller percentage, but it's not to say that we can't do it. Sometimes there's a high water table, sometimes there's a lot of rock, sometimes it's a field. So when you purchase land, all these things really factor in.
Oh, yeah.
And something for you to consider and think about, as you're going through the contract process and, as you're building your budget. When you're building your budget and you get pre-qualified for $500,000 or whatever the number ends up being, and you have some extreme fall, you got to think in the back of your mind, we've got some things we've got to consider as we go through this, because our standard is 4 courses a block. And because we're built on your lot, it's your property. So, we don't know that until we come out and do our due diligence and help, make you aware. So the more information you have from this podcast going forward is going to only help you have a realistic sense of what, is achievable for you,
Yeah, one thing to touch on too, we build on a lot of coastal areas.
Right.
Where there's flood zones, and some of those areas require you to build on pilings.
That's right.
Right. So that's something that we do. We do a lot of those too, and they're really cool. We can pretty much put any of our homes on pilings.
That's right.
There's some that lend themselves more to the coastal, I guess, architecture.
Right.
But that's something too, and that's something that'll come up. When you go through the survey process, that's going to come up. They're going to indicate whether it's in 100-year flood.
Yeah.
Floodplain or what.
They have what they call minimum flood elevation heights. So the town will tell you how high above elevation height you need to be. So,
Right.
if you have flood elevation at 5 feet, they may want you to be 10 feet out of flood zone. And the municipalities are going to let you know that. And then that'll dictate the type of foundation. In some areas where you would think it would need B pilings, we're able to get away with, concrete or block foundation, built on some, stud framing. It just really depends. Some of the areas down in North Carolina have high wind loads too. So you're going to want to know about that. And that can affect the way things are built and designed. None of it's impossible. It's just educating you, the customer, as the areas that you're building in, what you can kind of expect and try to avoid those pitfalls. Or if you happen to have property that's in those areas, just know that this is kind of the process that we go through.
Right.
I think that, if you already own land and you're not sure about your land, you come in, visit with one of our sales representatives. They'll walk you through the process, and kind of we'll hold your hand through that.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to have some people listening to this that already own their land. These are all things that you need to think about too.
Right.
Things that will help you through, but just things to think about if you haven't already contacted us. If you have any questions, you can definitely reach out to us anytime. Like we've said over and over here, we've got the people to help, and we love helping with that stuff.
One of the things that I'm not as versed in, that I think is probably good to talk about, would be some of the legal stuff, deeds, things like that. What should people know about that as they're doing their due diligence and that? I know that sometimes that comes up as an issue.
When you're buying property, really the things that you're going to want to look for is that whomever's selling you the property has clear title to that property, right? There's no liens against the property. There have been situations in the past where somebody has a tax lien against a property and they're trying to sell that property. And sometimes it gets missed, and it's always a good idea to buy title insurance when you're buying anything. If you're buying a resale or you're buying a piece of land, buy title insurance, because if something gets missed in the initial title search, you're going to be responsible for paying that if you don't have title insurance. If you have title insurance, the insurance is going to cover that. So if there's a $50,000 tax lien on a property that gets missed, and you get ready to build on that 5 years later and it comes up, you're going to have to pay it unless you bought title insurance on that property. So always buy title insurance. The other thing, that I think is important to note here while we're talking about this is, financing. When you're buying a lot, when you're buying a piece of land, there's different avenues for financing. One is obviously you can pay cash for it, which is always great. We love that. But most people don't want to pay cash for their property. So, the option is you can either get a land loan or you can get a construction loan.
Right.
Land loans are a little bit more difficult to get. They typically have a higher rate. The time frame on them is shorter, so it might be a 5-year loan as opposed to a 30-year if you're getting a mortgage or a construction loan. So we recommend on that, if you're in the process of that, reach out to us, let us bring us into the conversation, and we can set it up as a construction loan with a one-time close, and then basically what happens is, the construction loan will pay off the lot, and then we would build the home, and we would get paid at the end out of the construction loan. But it's one loan, one close, and it allows you to roll that that land into the total loan, so you don't have two loans. If you do have a land loan, for those of you out there that already own land, you have a land loan and you owe money on that land loan still. When you build with us, we can roll that land loan into your mortgage and it'll get paid off at closing. So the land will basically roll into your mortgage, and that mortgage pays it off at closing.
And we have all the lenders that'll help folks with that.
Oh yeah. We've got great lenders. We've got lenders that specialize in, in just about everything. We've got lenders that specialize in, if it's a large piece of property that you're looking for, there's certain lenders that won't loan on a property that's say 60 acres. So we've got, we have lenders that can do that. We've got great lenders on, the construction loan. If you're looking to do a construction loan and roll that land in, Really good rates. Extremely low money down on the land. And of course, we don't require any money down on the mortgage side of things. So.
Perfect. Another thing that I was thinking about with land, just kind of going back, you obviously have far more experience with this than I do, but is there any challenges that folks might worry about or think about or start talking about with deed specific? I know that, and I only bring up this example, and I could be wrong, where say you're gifted through inheritance a piece of property and you think you have the outright deed to that, but then it's attached to 3 or 4 siblings or cousins or friends or however that's approached. What does someone do to investigate that to make sure that their deed is really in their name? Is that just going to a lawyer? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean it's going to come up in a title search typically. Okay. That's something that we do on every deal that we have. We're going to do a title search. It's going to tell us, any of that stuff. If there's, there's a lot of situations that could come up. There could be somebody on a deed who has, who's dead, and that sometimes can become an issue. But it's something that we can definitely help with. There's ways around that, but there's a multitude of things that that could potentially come up. Janet in our office is the expert on that. I'm definitely not going to pretend to be an expert on that.
I'm definitely not. I'm the worst.
I know a little, so I don't want to get myself in trouble here by saying too much.
Right.
But anyway, it's something we've got an expert in-house who can help with.
Right.
And a title company who's extremely good and qualified, and anything like that would come up. They're gonna let you know what it is, and we're gonna tell you what needs to be done to get it resolved.
When folks have land and they're not sure, can they reach out to us? I mean, they can obviously reach out to us and send in, speak to one of our OSCs, online sales consultant. We're a wealth of knowledge. We have tons of resources. We really do have an expert in every field, right down to construction superintendents and warranty technicians. So we have definitely the resources to help you with that land purchase. I think that, we've gone over a lot of stuff. Did we miss anything?
Just permits and fees.
Permits and fees.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Permitting is something that you're gonna not, the permit fees they're gonna vary. Some jurisdictions are going to require certain things. There's certain counties that have certain foundation requirements, so you're not going to avoid. So they require it. Other counties don't. Virginia has a ton of counties. North Carolina has a ton. Mm-hmm. So every county is a little different when it comes to permits. So there's no real perfect answer for that.
No.
And the fees all vary.
And we're gonna, we take care of the zoning fee, the building permit fee. Really, the only thing that our customers are responsible for is the septic permit, the well and septic permit.
That's right.
So it kind of ties back into that. You want to make sure when you're buying the property that you get the soil test done for to make sure that it perks for a septic system. They'll provide a package for you that's, that is it tells you what type of system it is.
That's right.
And then, and then that system will go to a septic installer who will give a price on that particular type of septic.
Right.
And you won't have to worry about actually applying for the permit.
No.
Until, down the road when we're in the process of doing your contract and drafting your floor plans and you're choosing your colors. That all kind of happens simultaneously during that time.
It doesn't hurt to call the municipalities too and ask them if there's any special requirements that you may not know about.
Yeah, there could be bonds.
Yeah.
Some localities have bonds. Some have impact fees.
That's right. That's right.
It's not typical that you're going to get that stuff unless you're in the Northern Virginia area. But we have a lot of customers in Northern Virginia. And there are certain bonds that are required.
Right, landscaping requirements that are required prior to closing. certain drainage requirements. You may have to have an actual overall drainage plan, which is something that each municipality looks at different based on lot. And that's a big one, making sure that you understand that they're going to require that. That one gets hidden quite often, and it doesn't really come up until the last minute, and we have to go do, basically, before we grade the home for completion, they want a drainage plan. And that drainage plan may not totally be in harmony with what we have built there. So it's nice to know that. And we're gonna get that information up front, but I think it's important if you're asking those types of questions, because that can change what you have as far as a layout in your backyard or on the side yard or in the front yard. That can really dramatically change, what you're looking at.
Right.
So it's important to ask those questions.
Yeah. And all this stuff impacts, all this stuff can impact the budget too. So,
absolutely.
Don't assume if your budget's $500,000 that $500,000 is going to go to the house, right? I mentioned impact fees. It's rare that we run across impact fees, but there are there's a couple sections, I think in Stafford County, Virginia, where there's impact fees. There may be a few in Chesterfield County, Virginia.
Right.
And basically an impact fee is, they're saying that by building a new house on a property, you're going to impact the local infrastructure.
Schools.
Right? Schools, fire, police, all that stuff. And there could be a fee attached to that. And sometimes it could be, $5,000 or $15,000. But again, this is stuff that your realtor, if you're working with a good, knowledgeable realtor on land, the realtor should disclose all of this stuff to you, but a lot of times they don't.
No.
Many times they don't. Most times they probably don't. So, I think if you're currently looking for land or you're thinking about it, give us a call and we'll give you a list of things you can write down and talk to the realtor about. Make sure that you got all your ducks in a row, because
absolutely.
You don't want to buy something and then regret it.
I want to back up just 1 second and talk about really quickly. I think it impacts the buying of land. Is we talked about septic, we talked about well, I think we just kind of quickly talked about city service, city water, city sewer. Those two things can have a tremendous impact on the land that you're looking to buy. If those services are not run to the land, but the town is going to require you to use their services, there's what's called a tap fee. And that tap fee, similarly to the impact fee, right?
Right.
So there can be a tap fee to tap into their water and sewer system. And sometimes that tap fee doesn't include actually running the services to the lot. So people can get confused really easily. You've got this water main that's running down the road or a sewer main that's running down the road, but the branch work to that land isn't installed. So they're gonna say, well, you have a tap fee of $30,000 or $15,000 aside, water and sewer, but then you've also got a contract with either the municipality's preferred contractor, or you've got to go find someone that's going to do what's called a wet tap. And a wet tap, we'll talk more about this in utilities, but it can impact the budget significantly.
Oh, yeah.
If you're talking about a wet tap, and that's a term that you can take the municipality and ask them directly, do I need to have a wet tap done here? Because as you're looking to purchase this land, it's a great point you brought. The real estate agents aren't going to do that due diligence. No. And as you go through that process and it's city sewer and water, you need to make sure that there's no wet tap, or what the tap fees are, and if you got to run that into the lot. Now, let's say you've got a piece of property that's 20 acres and you want to set your house nearest the back or rear of that property. And you've got to do a city sewer and water connection. You have to get a wet tap. That's a difficult thing. You're tying into an active water and sewer line. And then you've got to bring those services clear up to the back of the lot. That can be thousands of dollars when you talk about it. And I know for sure some of our customers who have bought land didn't really vet that thoroughly.
Right.
And were just completely taken off guard with what that requirement is. And you might even say, well, Scott, why can't I do a well and septic? Sometimes they won't let you do it.
No, they typically are not going to allow you if the city or locality water and sewer is available. They're not going to let you do that.
They're going to force you to do it that way.
Yeah.
And those costs can be significant.
Oh yeah.
Especially if you're crossing like a major highway.
Right. It has to go under the highway.
So all those things, That one there, perk test, all the things we talked about, but that one is a hidden little demon.
Yeah.
Because if you're not prepared for it, we've seen customers not even that long ago had to spend $90,000 to get that done. And he wasn't expecting it, and I felt bad that happened.
Right.
But he just didn't know. Now we'll ask the question every time. Salespeople will, ask you, is this city water and sewer? When you come in for contract, and you'll say, yes, it's city water, city sewer. Great. We'll ask the question back. Is it run to the lot already? Is it requiring a wet tap? That, in my opinion, is a little late in the game for you guys going through this process to know that, because you're already kind of committed.
Right.
You're pot committed to that. And at that point, you're kind of like, oh no, what do I do? And we'll help you do that. Absolutely. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
But it does get tricky, and it can be dicey, and it can mean whether or not you can afford that or not.
Oh yeah.
I mean, if you've got that in addition to some fall on your lot, in addition to some soils that you really need to know. So this, the purpose of this podcast isn't to scare those. Most of the time that doesn't happen. Most of the time that's not a problem. Down North Carolina, a lot of it's city water and city sewer. And it's usually they're run right to the land, or it's not a big deal to get it there. A lot of the municipalities, once you pay the tap fee, will include the connection with the tap fee. You're just gonna wanna know that in fact is the case.
Yeah, the most important thing there is just check that out when you're looking at land. Find out if it's city water and sewer. Is it well and septic? If it is city water and sewer, you're going to want to go and talk to the locality. Find out if the taps are already brought to the lot.
And they'll know. They have a civil drawing that shows exactly where those connection points are, and they should be able to tell you whether or not that's there. A lot of times they'll put a T on the line, expecting that they'll be building in the future. And then in that case, it's an easy connection and it's not the end of the world.
Right.
We can't tell you all the different variables that might exist, but it's a question definitely worthy of asking when you're going through the process of purchasing land.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, we've seen it all. Like in the city of Richmond, sometimes the water tap can be 10 feet below a cobblestone or brick sidewalk.
Yeah.
And they're so hard to find.
You
but
got to chew through it all.
They're there. You just don't know how deep is it.
That's right.
And you just dig and dig and dig.
Some of the records are just outdated.
Right.
And they don't have a lot of that information, where out west, such new infrastructure that stuff exists basically as built drawings of what's already there. They have them here, but sometimes that stuff's out, really dated.
Oh, right.
Really, really dated. So yeah, we've talked about a lot.
Yeah, I think
Hopefully you guys are able to take notes at home and you caught a lot. We are expanding down into Wilmington and have a new office going in Raleigh, and we'll be building in South Carolina very soon. We're ready to go down there. So
we're already selling down there. We've got a temporary sales office set up in Wilmington, North Carolina.
That's right.
Check out our website for the expanded building area. We are putting a new design studio in Raleigh as well, which expands our area in North Carolina even deeper. So definitely excited about that stuff.
Yeah, so when you're looking at land and you're not sure, we have a great, we're actually, you guys can't see it, but we have Brittany here who manages all of our OSCs, and we're looking all the time at expanding into new areas. So, flood us with calls, inquiries, questions, because the more response we get in an area that we may not be in today doesn't mean we won't be there tomorrow. So we're looking to grow. We're looking to, get out into some of those areas that aren't on our map. So if you go to our website, you're like, man, that's not our coverage area, but we really like to build. Reach out to one of our online sales consultants. It's on our website. We respond very, very quickly, within minutes a lot of times, and can answer your questions. And if you have a piece of property that's outside of our area, I think I can confidently say he might kick me, although the tables were pretty far apart. But down in Franklin County, Virginia.
Yeah, well, we just opened up Franklin County.
So there you go.
We're open in Franklin County, Virginia. We've got one that we agreed to do in Botetourt County, Virginia. So we're flexible where we can be, and we are looking at putting another location out in the Roanoke, Virginia area. So yeah, definitely reach out to us. And if you're looking for land, and you want to build with us, make sure you check with us and, make sure we can build wherever that property is.
We're excited to build for you wherever you are. There's going to be a ton of questions I'm sure that you're going to have, folks, with land, stuff that we may not have covered, maybe stuff that we weren't super clear on. But like Scott said in our intro, we're going to provide a process for you guys to reach out to us, whether it be Facebook or our website directly. And, we'll probably do a Q&A like episode 5, 6. We want to get a few under our belt so that you guys have enough stuff to ask questions about. And then we'll do, a Q&A about all your questions. Anything that we didn't cover today, please email and let us know via our website or any of our socials. So that you can contact us, because we really want this to be interactive. I mean, I think the goal is for you at home to be able to see who we are, what we do, kind of humanize who we are, so that we're, not the Wizard of Oz behind some big curtain. We're just normal folks, and we have everyday hardworking people here and a great team that we've alluded to several times that kind of help you all the way through the build process. So, we're here for you.
Yeah,
we want to help you.
Yeah, we want to know what you want to know. So definitely, we'll have clear instructions on how you can submit those questions.
That's right.
And let us know what you want to know, because that's what these podcasts are for.
And I think too, one thing to say again, he might kick me. If you don't have land and you really want to build, be assertive. Say, hey, I really want to do this. I'm looking in this area, and we'll help you out where we can.
Yeah.
We'll go out of our way to use our resources, which is a lot, and we'll do what we can. Hopefully soon we'll have somebody that can be more full-time in that role. We're not there yet, but hopefully in the next few months we have someone that we can designate to that position. And the more feedback we get from you at home, the more likely we are to do such things. So, we do get a lot of no land, what we call a lead or a contact. But if you're really ready to go, be assertive in your effort with us, and we'll be just as equally assertive back to you, and we'll help you cross that finish line.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's hard to find land, if you don't know what you're doing.
That's right.
If you don't have a realtor that you can trust, a lot of realtors are going to try to steer you towards a resale.
Right.
Because they're going to get paid quicker that way. Really,
that's right.
Honestly, and they don't get paid as much on land because the land isn't as much as the resale house.
That's
so
right.
they're gonna push you towards a resale. So we can help you. We do have some realtor contacts who we trust, who are not going to do that. So definitely reach out to us. Call us. You'll talk to one of our OSCs. There's Melissa and Kaylee, and Audrey's getting ready to start. So you'll get one of them on the phone, or shoot us an email or a message on one of our socials. Let us know, and we'll do everything we can to help. We're not promising anything, but we want to help however we can.
We hope you guys were edified by this, and we're grateful that you've invited us into your home.
What does that mean?
What's that?
Edified.
I'm not sure. It sounded like a good word. I think it's like hopefully you're inspired.
Okay.
Inspired, maybe.
Inspired is good.
Yeah, that's a good word. It's probably better. Don't hesitate to reach out, and
absolutely.
Let us know what you think, and go to our website and go to see all of our YouTube channel stuff, and go check out our Simply Mitchell stuff done specifically by our president and leader, Scott Sleemy, and I think you can get some more details there. There's all the construction conversations that we've done, so it's always a resource. Where our plan is to put a bunch of stuff up there, a lot of dialogue and content for you guys to absorb. So that's our goal for the coming year, to really saturate you with so much information you feel like you're an expert when you walk through the doors to write a contract.
Absolutely. Yeah, and lastly, I think we're probably boring people now. But,
I think so.
Give us your feedback on this podcast, because it is our first real episode, and we want to know what you like, what you don't like. So give us your feedback
in the comments below.
Yes.
But until next time, I'm Deven.
I'm Scott. We'll see you later.